Righto, welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast. My name is Munter. I'm here with Lugsy and Jacko, and this is episode number 15. We've got a big podcast for you guys. Dean Elgar gets the last laugh in the first test between England and South Africa. We're talking Caps Windies and then one of the weirder ODI series I can remember. Speaking of the Caps, we have out or not out, and of course, Coach Corner. But this week, due to public demand, we have an extended version. But first, grab your favourite snack, and we will do the same because it's time for Snapchat.
Spank Maximum, the first of this contest. Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Boys, Snack of the Week last week was an outstanding addition. Thank you to all those that voted on our Instagram poll, and in particular the ones that helped me get my first W. My Boysenberry Riffle Tip Top and Cadbury's collaboration got me 56% of the votes. Jacko come in second at 25% with his very healthy rice crackers and peanut butter with banana. Jacko was that confident about his choice that he even voted for Simon, who unfortunately for himself, his protein bar and peanut butter option managed 19%. Boys, we've had another week to prepare for week 2. Jacko, first, thoughts on last week's results, plus run us through your snack this week.
Pretty clear-cut trend that started already to be set, which is, I suppose the worse for you, the better the public's going to respond. Huge self-stitch, massive own goal from me, voting for Croms. Thought I was clicking into the story and was actually voting. So, yeah, big own goal. Trying to get back on into the winner's circle this week, and I've gone for a Nana's mini apple pie with a little bit of vanilla ice cream on top.
Dangerously good.
Quite a comeback.
When you add that it's like it's made with love, that's the part that probably puts it over the edge.
Yeah, I mean that's the brand, but I'm sure she did make it with love.
Oh, shit. Oh no. Well, it's gonna be tough to beat. Lugsy, what are you running?
Yeah, firstly, just touching on that Oggie from Jacko there. I like how in the chat Matt's gone, will Simon do the right thing and give Jacko a vote? And I've obviously not done that, and I've clearly voted myself last week. But I knew I was in trouble. I mean, I brought a pretty ridiculous snack to the table. Unconventional, sure. I think I've gone a bit better. I don't know if it can quite beat the old apple pie sort of setup, but I have gone quite similar. And I've gone Auntie Betty's. We chocolate cake sort of set up, paired it with some hokey pokey ice cream. Got a couple of peaches and some berries in there. Also a bit of homemade baking from Andrew's mother again, the old Afghan. So I've gone as full on as I can. Naturally, I mean, I'm snacking all day, so I've got through a few fruit there. Some pick and mix from Countdown, from Pick and Save. We full sugar Coke with dinner naturally. So I've had a pretty snacky sort of a setup of the day.
We've been snacking.
Gee, that's tough to beat. Boys have come to play. I've got a couple, and the first one I've already polished off, but I had a jelly tip trumpet option from
really
they actually come in a wee 4-pack that we get with our groceries, which I'm a massive.
I was going to say, how many days is a 4-pack lasting? No more than
over under at 2 days.
Unfortunately, you've got to share these things, so it'll be 2. But no, enjoy it. And my main snack of the week is I've actually gone for something that probably shouldn't be controversial, but it seems to be, and has nothing to do with the taste. On the inside, we have a pretty standard dairy milk block of chocolate from the company Whittaker's, but it's on the outside that has raised a few eyebrows. I've got in my hands a Whittaker's creamy milk block of chocolate, but the packaging is in Māori, which is, of course, our native language here in New Zealand. And the reason I've gone for this option is
to get the public support behind you. Let's be blatant about that.
That is pandering.
I just can't believe some of this like blowback. I just can't believe.
You're leading the charge.
I'm not Pin Crusher. Let's just rein it in.
How many people actually knew it said creamy milk on the front? Like, honestly, it's like the best tasting chocolate. Just buy it, get it in you.
I couldn't believe it. That's the only reason I bought it is I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. But now it's just you just want to wind some people up. Like, imagine getting so worked up by the packaging that you're gonna you're gonna not buy anything from Whittaker's again.
Yeah. How fragile is your week that Whittaker's renaming something in one of our languages, like making you disband in the brand?
Yeah, and let's not say that all rebranding of packaging is allowed, because the butcher job Coca-Cola's done on that vanilla is nothing short of disgraceful. But in this case, you're right.
Well, yeah, I can't. That's it. And I sort of summed it up where the same, and this is a bit of a segue to the next. I guess when we start talking about cricket on a cricket podcast, but the same people that get wound up by packaging are the same people that don't like baseball. If you sort of know what I mean. And I think it's going to be a very tight race. I'll probably give Jacko the short odds. I think it's pretty. They look pretty tasty for mine.
Yeah, the photo really does it justice.
I was going to say, presentation is probably going to end up playing a big role here, and I'm not a presentation guy.
True. Yeah, so we'll move on. So speaking of angry people who don't like change, is there anyone else on the planet more smug right now than Dean Elgar? Let's see them do it against our bowlers, he said. Well, South Africa bowled England out for under 200 twice, and they won by an innings inside of 3 days. So he must have been onto something. Before we talk about England, boys, let's talk about South Africa first, and in particular this bowling attack, because it is unbelievable. I mean, it's the seamers really. We've got 3 seamers that hit 140 Ks regularly, and you got Nortje who hits 150 regular. And this is how regular. 40% of South Africa's deliveries were 140K or more. And if you compare that to England, I think theirs was like 0.5. So I'd say 1 or 2 deliveries, if that. This current attack, they have three bowlers in the top 10 all time for strike rates, like all time. Like on the same list as Shane Bond, Dale Steyn, and they're all ahead of Kyle Jamieson. And the other bowler is Janssen, who's 6'8". He's left-handed. He bowls 140 Ks and he swings around corners. Boys, is this the best attack in the world? And was Dean Elgar right?
Yeah, I'll answer this in 2 parts. First of all, this attack is fucking naughty. Holy shit, that's something to watch. That is Test cricket at its absolute finest. I mean, Nortje's delivery that bowled Bairstow at 150 was the fastest ball recorded to take a wicket in, I don't know, forever. Yeah, I mean, they're basically everything. The African teams always had good quicks. Like, you've always had a Steyn, Nintini,
Donald,
Alan Donald. Like, they've always got them, and now they've got 4 of them.
All timers as well.
Yeah, which is, and I mean, Nortje is the icing on the cake once you've got through Rabada, and I mean, Rabada's stats are unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, that pace attack, that's the best in the world. It's not even close. The only shame is that England don't have Jofra and Wood in there to sort of return volley, return serve a wee bit, because that could have made this series quite spicy, was Archer sort of coming in and guys ducking into his bouncer and whatnot. But, yeah, I suppose that attack is special at the moment, easily the best in the world. Yeah, can't wait for the World Test Championship final with them in it. And then, yeah, my thoughts in regards to Bazball, I think Bazball is being blown out of proportion by the media. I think Bazball was essentially how England went about chasing totals in the 4th innings, which was them saying, actually, let's have a crack at this. What are we going to lose? So on the flattest of English surfaces, as they got into day 4 and day 5, against, I mean, bowlers that weren't up to the South African standards, but Bazball was almost that, well, we're going to be okay with losing to try and win this. And that's where Bazball originated from. It wasn't England being fucking reckless in the first innings trying to score 400 on day 1, which I think Dean Elgar sort of thought, oh, that's what they're trying to do all the time. And then he's gotten a green seamer with the world's best attack and tuned England up. So, yeah, I don't think Bazball's dead. I think Bazball's been blown out of proportion.
Yeah, I have to say, you cut out a bit for me there, Munter, sorry. So what were the 2 questions I'm gathering something to do with how good's this South African attack and is Bazball dead? What am I dealing with there, side?
Yeah, along those sort of lines, and just how smug Dean Elgar must be right now.
Yeah, I'd say for starters, highly smug, but and rightly so. You sort of, it's a good bit of sort of fought fire with fire there. Like Bazball was getting all the attention, and he sort of stepped up with, I think, a fair bit of annoyance though, but sort of took the game back to England, which was probably needed. I think, as Jacko said on their attack, it's just a very strong attack, and as he pointed out, it's just such a hallmark of South African cricket. Like, as you mentioned, Donald, and when he was bowling, Donald had the pace, and Pollock was just there, ball in, every ball. And then we went from Steyn and Philander, where Steyn had that sort of pace, and Philander was just there, ball in, ball out, right where you need to be. And that balance has stayed again with this team, with Rabada just doing, he's there every ball, same spot, and then at the other end, they're attacking with some real heat. So it's just such a good hallmark of South African cricket. Bazball, yeah, definitely not dead. And as Jacko pointed out, it's very sort of overblown. I mean, I think anyone that's watched, cricket for a long time, there was just the way they were playing could never work long term. You're not just going to beat all the best teams in the world, smash them 5 runs and over 4 or 5 days, chasing big totals. That it just can't work out that way. And that's not going to be ultimately how this team gets remembered, I don't think, on this sort of couple of games. It's going to be long term. I think it's more just, the attitude that they want to play with is the hallmark of Bazball, not just smashing it on day 4 or 5 to win test matches.
Yeah. It's funny because you've always mentioned that the media's sort of overblown it, and it's almost like the media are knocking it back down. That's what I love about the English media is they hype everything up, and then the minute it goes wrong, they can't wait to tear them down.
In the media's defence, England were also playing right up to
True.
it for a while there.
True. It would probably, and to be fair, none of it was coming from McCallum's mouth.
No,
it was,
that's for sure.
And which is probably why he doesn't like Bazball. So they probably haven't helped themselves. Because it is funny because like Brendan McCullum's always said that like his favourite player is BJ Watling. He knows that there's other ways to play the game, and it felt like they looked like the team before McCullum and Stokes took over. They didn't really know how to approach a green seamer or being behind in the game or having to dig themselves out of a hole. Because for me, that I could excuse the first innings because it's a green seam, it's a good attack, but to lose by an innings and that second innings when it's probably the best for batting, the South Africa made 320 odd. Like to not make them work a little bit more is probably a little disappointing. But it's probably not panic stations just yet.
Don't think they're panicking. It's just that. I suppose their batting didn't learn any lessons. It didn't show up again when it needed to. And I don't think we can underestimate that South African attack because that's as good as you'll see in Test cricket for, 5 years either side of today.
Yeah, I think the big thing is it's not like there's plenty of teams that don't have the Bazball style that have, put in this sort of performance. Like a lot of teams pre and post Bazball will lose by an innings and come away a bit disappointed. The lack of fights, obviously, if that continues, that won't get accepted. Losing games of cricket will, to a point, but a real lack of fight won't get accepted. I think the bottom line for Bazball, though, of this is this the style of cricket that's going to get them the best results? Because that's all it comes down to, really. As McCullum looked at their side and said, playing this style is this our best chance to win cricket games? And that's sort of ultimately what they'll have to decide if they need to taper it back a wee bit or they think this style's still the best. But that's what it's going to be at the bottom line is winning games of cricket.
100%. And just on that style as well, I think they're so fresh in this McCullum era. They probably haven't learnt, when's the time to do it in certain ways because, you can choose to play one style of Test cricket, but Test cricket over the years has shown that doesn't work. Your ability to adapt and overcome situations and be the team that sort of solves the problems the best for those 5 days is actually going to win. So they've got this all guns blazing, we're going to chase whatever, but you've actually got to get to the chase first. So figuring out that first 3 days, first 4 days, how to get to the chase is where they're sort of, as you said, that's where they're trying to figure things out at the moment. And I think they did it well against New Zealand and India, where they played competitive enough, kept themselves in the game, and then could take that fight at the end. Whereas I think in Africa, against Africa, as you've said, they've gone back into their shells. They've folded a wee bit with the bat, and they just haven't been able to get to that last couple of days for that last little fight, which they backed themselves to win.
That's well said. It's funny, like everyone talks about Bazball and Brendan McCullum and how he's like swashbuckling. He's got the fastest 100 and all that sort of stuff. But like his most famous innings is that 300. And one of the reasons I love that 300 is we were behind by like 250 going into the second innings. And I think we would have been 4 for bugger all as well when him and Watling got together. And he didn't whack us out of trouble. He was able to dig us out of a hole, a massive hole, when required. And that to me is what Bazball is about. It's more just adapting to the situation. And if it is positive, if you do need to be positive, then you take that option. But if you have to knuckle down, then you're able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the main thing that will overlap that is like just positivity in everything you're doing. So he'll just still want them, if they have to dig in and defend, just do it positively, and then it'll open up. But I think, as Jacko said, like they're not going to be the only team that gets rolled by the South African bowling lineup.
No, that's right. If South Africa have sort of 1 foot in this championship final, I'd love for them to go ahead up against Australia. Those two teams, with the history they had in a high pressure situation, those two bowling attacks, Jesus Christ, anything can happen there.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. And I think we're heading towards that, aren't we? Like Aussie and South Africa both on like 75% win rate, if I'm not mistaken. Everyone else is 50 or less. So yeah, hopefully a strong home summer by both of those just locks that in, because that would be, and I mean, we will be gutted that's only going to be a one-off game. Like that could be a series and an all-time series, but we'll be happy with one game if we get it, because it, again, could be all-time.
Yeah, I think if New Zealand aren't going to be there, and it's not looking too likely at this stage, I think that would be for the neutral sort of South Africa, Australia at the moment. It's a pretty sexy option.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the Caps and the West Indies ODI series, where our Caps completed their second white ball series victory in the West Indies, and this time it was the ODIs 2-1. It's funny, I said to you boys after the second ODI, where basically every innings was about 200, that this might be the single worst ODI series of all time. I mean, it was low scores. It was on the back of no one liked ODI cricket. There were no crowds. These games couldn't have been less. But then they slip in a really nice third ODI that's capped off a low-key, pretty awesome series win for New Zealand, with West Indies posting around 300 and our Caps chasing it down relatively comfortably in the end, 5 down with a few overs to spare. Boys, what did you make of this series?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of hinted at it. This just felt like basically a microcosm of club cricket, these 3 games. The amount of times I've had a 3-game stretch like this in club cricket, unbelievable. Your team underbats on a sort of a road that they should get heaps of runs on. That's the first game. We stumble to 190. The West Indies chase it easy. You're sitting in the sheds. Why didn't we score more runs out there? Game 2, one batter goes off. You sort of struggle for 200. You think, oh, we should have got way more than that. This should be an easy game. Then you remember you're playing the worst team in the grade. Your big boys stand up and they're 50 for fuck all after 10 overs. Easy win. And then, yeah, you play one of the heavyweights and you get a good game on a good surface and both teams make 300 and everyone's happy. Cricket's good again. So, yeah, that was my takeaway.
That's brilliant.
Don't know if that was positive or negative towards cricket in general. It summed it up nicely. Yeah, it was, as you say, Munter, it was heading to be a bit of a dull series, and then this sort of, I think today's game actually took on like quite a bit of importance. It was because it wasn't the fact that we'd lost that first game. It was sort of the batting was all a bit at sea. A few guys getting starts, but no one kicking on, and then the same again in the second game where Finn Allen obviously looked pretty sharp, but no one else even got a score. And then if we had this third one day where we ultimately, if we didn't step up with the bat, if we lost the series and then sort of no one had a good series with the bat, it would have been a bit of a poor way to enter this winter run. So I think this game actually took on a bit of low-key importance and actually ends out the way we've batted today, making it a pretty good series and a pretty good series win.
You touched on it there before, Luxy. I want to talk about Finn Allen, and in particular his 96 of 117 in that second innings. That is one of the most underrated innings of his short career, you'd have to say, because we think when we think of Finn Allen, we think of the guy that gets 50 off 20 balls, or he gets nothing, and he's exciting, he does all this stuff. But this innings here just shows how much talent this kid has to be able to rein it in and actually, like, that's a really important innings. We only got about 210, and everyone was failing around him. So I'm pretty pumped by that, boys. What did you guys make of it?
Yeah, very good to see. I think we've seen this in the past with New Zealand, sort of that T20 basher at the top, and Colin Munro, who never quite figured it out in one-day cricket. Ricky Black, if you're listening, I know you're not going to be happy with me going at Munners, but he just never felt like he figured out the tempo of how he wanted to bat in one-day cricket. And it already seems like Finn can do that, which is really exciting to have that like plug-and-play white ball opener for each format. So I think that was, as you said, I think probably the most important knock of his sort of career to date, because he's shown he can do it in both formats in contrasting styles, which I think shows like the underlying how good of a batter he is and how big of a talent he's going to be for a long time to come. If he can go between the two, means his trajectory is sort of could be somewhere in the Guptill frame as opposed to Munro, who ultimately blasts a lot of runs for us, doesn't figure it out in the one days, and then off to the scorchies.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty big fans of Finn Allen, and I think that the biggest thing probably when these guys who are now growing up on a pretty big steady diet of 2020 is just probably not realizing how much time they have with these 50 over games. Whereas you can, I mean, you don't want to get bogged down obviously, but you can just give up a couple overs to the bowlers. In 2020s that's probably unacceptable. And at that point, you're sort of already getting bogged down and thinking it's time to hit out.
Yeah,
but you do have that bit of extra time.
Yeah, quick interjection on that. What about 50 extra balls?
What do you mean?
Well, like today's game, who was the opener? They got 50 off 100 and they scored 300.
Shay. Well, I'll tell you what. A lot of people have been pretty anti Bazball. But no more than Shea Hope. I mean, he took a stand today. He took a real stand for the traditions of the game, and he got 50 off 100 in an ODI, just to show the old guard's still here.
And there was no scoreboard pressure as well. Like he was the first to be dismissed. They had a partnership of about 170. Like you'd think at some point he might accelerate.
Well, that's the other thing is. Yeah, I was obviously working away and I'm following the game and I've clicked on and I'm 150 for none. I'm thinking, geez. And then I've seen him and he's 50 off 100. And I'm thinking, well, the other guys, it can't be a shocking pitch because the other guy's 100 off 100 here. And he's gone out and as you said, maybe he was feeling a bit smug in the locker room because they lost a few pretty quickly. But then their skippers also blasted a quick fire 70 or 80.
90 off about 50.
Yeah. It's a strange innings, all right.
Yeah, Finn Allen's was his best work. I think that could be Shai Hope's worst, maybe in international cricket.
Another dagger into Ricky Black there, actually, just quietly.
Yeah, he is a big.
He is actually a very good player, though.
Averages 50 off 100 balls. I've just got one more sort of point before we sort of move on. And it's on the back of Trent Boult signing with the Big Bash and obviously this series here. How good, and it was probably more for the second ODI, but how good is it just seeing Southee and Boult run riot?
Outstanding.
We might not see it again. We might not see it again. That's the scary thing.
I think that's the big thing at the moment is you see them do a bit of damage and you're realising you're watching it for one of the last times, It's probably not going to happen for too long, especially both in partnership there. Southee swinging it one way, Boult the old left arm of the other. It's all just pretty to watch, isn't it?
I know, it feels like when one of them gets the tail up, the other sort of just matches them. Like I remember when they bowled England out for like 50 odd in that pink ball test, and they bowled through unchanged. Like you're going to miss that sort of stuff.
Definitely. I mean, they've rolled through England at the Cape Town and the World Cup as well. A special pairing, and as you said, it's just gutting that we're sort of at the end of it at the international level.
I'll tell you what, sort of just segueing onto this, I was just thinking today, and not to get the boys too sad or anything, but I was just thinking with Kane, when Kane got ruled out, I think it's been quite a while since we got a sustained run of Kane Williamson playing cricket, isn't it?
Yeah, I had that down because it sort of was like, the thing about Kane is he loves to bat, and it's like he loves to train to feel in form, but he's always injured. So when he is playing, he's not in form. So it's just this vicious cycle that we like. I don't remember the last time he just peeled off runs.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a while since he's sort of played consistent cricket and had a really consistent run again.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's not his bloody elbow. At least it's a different injury, So it was his quad, I think, this time. So hopefully he'll be back. I think what are the Caps got? Some ODIs against Australia coming up. So
some sneaky ODI. These are sneaking up real quick, aren't they?
Yeah, Jebel Headley's in Cairns.
This is literally only a week or two away.
Oh, there's that much cricket. There's that much cricket.
Yeah, you can say ODIs don't matter and all of them. I'm still going to get well fired up for New Zealand, Australia at 4 p.m. on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Tell you what, we lose this Chapel Hadleys, tear it down, start again.
I think it's a rebuild for an international team.
Rebuild time.
Love it. Okay, should we move on then, fellas? I guess we're sort of talking about the same series anyway, but... Yeah, out or not out this week is, well, before we get to Lugsy's question for us, I should probably mention that I had a bit of a howler last week. Turns out Richard Pant was never actually dropped from India. I fell into the old fake account trap. But, oh, well, you live and you learn, I guess. So, having said that, 57% of people were in favour of the mandatory fitness test, which was pretty fair, even though I tried my best to play devil's advocate. So we'll move on. We'll put that to bed. This week, Lugsy, you had a question for us. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, before I get to my question quickly, how good's that just to know we've got that in the back pocket for content on a light week? We can just make up stories. So that's really good to know that's just in the back pocket there. Well, I'll get to my out or not out. And it was it's something that I've noticed a few of these West Indies players do, and it creeps in the game a little bit too much just at the moment for my liking. And I think Shimron Hetmeyer is the one that does it the most. And it's batting without any sort of lid on. So the old two spinners have came on, and he's took the helmet off, but he hasn't replaced it with a cap of any sort, and he's just sort of gone Boult on top. He also sometimes rocks pretty outrageous sort of here.
So to make it
look, that's probably why he's doing it. But to me, that even looks a wee bit too village as well for my liking. So sort of pose the question on where you stand on not wearing any sort of thing on top of the head.
Yeah, I'm pretty. Well, I mean, last week we talked about cricket being a runs and wickets game, but the reality is that's not true at all. It's about looking good, and there's these things about cricket where something will just look off and you can't explain it. And wearing nothing on your head while batting is one of those things. Yeah, you've got to be looking good. You get so much more leeway when you look good. I mean, look at Zach Crawley. He hasn't scored a run in about 3 years, but he looks good. McCullum likes the way he plays. So he's still on the side. If he was like Rory Burns, McCullum would have got rid of him ages ago.
Rory Burns on the side note.
I mean, so that's why I'm out. I'm massively out on nothing on the head, and I can't explain it. I believe if people bat without nothing on their head, they average 5 less than when people have something on their head.
Yeah, that is a stat.
Yeah,
so, that from the same institution that released the Sharp Pin story, or
yeah, so that's another made up one, but it's believable though, isn't
checks
it?
Out.
So yeah, it checks out. It makes sense. So look
I'd
good.
be shocked if it's only 5, if I'm honest.
So, I mean, like, to sum it up, so look good, feel good, play good.
I think the biggest thing for it is there's no excuse to not have your cap run out too. Like, it's not like you're putting your helmet down behind the wicket keeper and fucking playing them over, are you? Like, the guy's running out there, he can have a cap in his hand. Like, you can't tell me it's easier to just, whip my helmet on and off. Like, you've got a 12th running out your helmet, he can run out your cap. There's no excuse for it. Put something on your dome. That's all I've got to say.
Or just keep the helmet on. Just wear your helmet. Like,
I mean, you're going to slog sweep one into your dome. Like, keep your helmet on at all times.
Yeah, that's it. I was going to say, I was never at, like, even 2 spinners, or even when we're 12 years old and no one can bowl fast anyway, I was still always a helmet guy.
Yeah.
Now,
same.
I don't know if subconsciously it's because I had the big lugs and the cap sort of sticks them out of touch. But I just always felt a lot more comfortable with the helmet on.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I was massive on that. I mean, we often played our cricket in Dunedin, which is famously cold. So it's not like we're dealing with like subcontinent conditions and that sort of carry on. But if we had to like rank what you could wear on your head while batting, like say you can't wear a helmet, I've got a wee sort of power rankings for you, and I want your sort of opinions.
Yep.
So at the number 1 is a baggy.
Is this number 2 behind a helmet, or are you going? Are you putting one ahead of the?
No, let's say you're taking your helmet off and you've called for something.
Right, okay.
Like these are the power rankings. So number 1 is a baggy. Number 2 is your floppy. Number 3 is your standard cap. And then after that, you might wear nothing, but you won't. You'll put your helmet back on.
Where does a headband rate in that list? Or a do-rag?
It's just. I mean, I don't.
You can't have that sort of culture in a locker room.
Nah, in the toast.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking power ranking outside of the helmet, I think you've nailed it. The cap gets a real sort of tough go of things there at 3, just because, I mean, Test cricket, you're going to look unbelievable when you're baggy, so that's always going to win. The wide brim in Test cricket outweighs the cap in one-day cricket, for my mind, so that's always going to slot in at 2. So, yeah, the cap, an unfortunate number 3, but, I mean, all just head and shoulders above no helmet or a headband.
Yeah, the baggies, I think the baggies the number 1 by a fair way. The floppy is an interesting one because I think it's got the ability to go wrong in the wrong hands.
Yeah, that's a good one because I'm not sure everyone can wear it.
No, I think you've got to be a pretty classy sort of individual to get away with the floppy. Maybe you've got to be sort of 120 not out in Sri Lanka or something. I don't think you can just go to that to start with. The cap's obviously, the cap's quite a smart look, but it just doesn't have the weight of like the baggy, obviously. The sort of T20 hats, sort of almost new era style that have came into cricket for the last few years, they've sort of became accepted, but I'm still hugely against them. I have to say.
The flat cap?
Yeah, don't like it on the cricket field.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I agree with you, but I don't have an answer why.
Well, we're not in the skate park, are we? We're on the cricket field.
So you'll be very happy then with Tim McIntosh's baggy that he wore in Gale in Sri Lanka, then, Simon? The floppy, sorry.
I sort of remember when Flem got that 274 in Sri Lanka, and he was really in the floppy most of that innings. That's when it really grew on me.
Was Tim McIntosh established enough to wear the wide brim out there?
Probably not. Probably not. To be fair, like, do you have to play a certain amount of tests?
50.
Which is, it's funny because this is coming from 3 blokes that couldn't be further away from Test cricket, talking about how many tests you've got to play before you can wear a floppy.
Yeah. So do you know the one? I was never, obviously, as I mentioned, I was never a guy that wanted to take off the helmet. But sometimes maybe want to do it, and this is more as I was a bit younger, 13, 14. It's just because it felt quite professional to take it off and get ran out of cap.
Yeah.
Like, I'd often change my gloves for absolutely no reason other than I wanted to feel kind of professional.
I'll do one better. I won't even take my vest off if I bat in it if it gets too hot because I don't want to seem silly and get out straight afterwards.
I'm 100% with you. I'm never the vest off. I think that's just an added layer of protection is what I like about it.
Just feel a bit more safe in it.
Starting today, you will play like winners, act like winners, and most importantly, you will be winners. If you listen and learn, you will win basketball games. And gentlemen, winning in here is the key to winning out there.
Righto, so we've got an extended coach corner today with a few guys reaching out via the old Apple Podcast reviews, which we're a big fan of. Again, if you have a question for me or the panel, leave us a review or email at maximumcricket21@gmail.com, or even a wee cheeky DM on Insta will do the trick. So we've got a few today. So we'll start with the Apple ones. So boys, this is a double banger question for Munter. 1, who is the most interesting bloke you've opened with? And 2, why is it Liam Cotton? Keep it up, boys. And this is from Beckenberg. I must admit, when I first seen this, I thought this was Liam Cotton himself. But with some investigation, we found out it wasn't. But to answer your question, I think we can open this up to just not just you've opened with, but just you've played cricket with, if you've got any stories. So Liam Cotton is definitely the most interesting bloke I've opened with or played with. And I'll just say one story about Liam Cotton. And this is the first time I ever met Liam Cotton back in the Kite days. And I was fielding on the boundary on the opposite side, and the ball was slog swept out to a young Liam Cotton who was fielding on the boundary. And he's gone for the reverse cut, but he's also got one leg on the ground like he's sort of proposing sort of thing. And it's gone straight through the reverse cut right onto the dome and it's the biggest sounding you ever heard. And he's probably 5 meters inside the boundary. And that's ricocheted off his dome about 10 meters over the boundary. Like it was like he's headed it into top locker for a game winning goal or something like that. It was quite something.
Top corner.
It's gone for 6, and he's on the deck, and then he's got to compose himself, go fetch the ball, and sort of throw it back. And so that was the first time I met him, and I thought this guy's something. And I opened the bat in with him a few times, and he's just nothing comes easy to him. Let's just put it that way. Even if he scores runs, that sort of guy. And before I go any further, one of the greatest humans you ever meet, by the way. Before I sound like the biggest arsehole.
Yeah, one of the greats.
One of the greats. And probably the other story was when me and him opened the batting at Club Nats, and he was having a horror of a time against some pretty good seamers. I think we're playing old boys, and it was like Matt McEwen and Logan Van Beek, and they were all over him, all over me as well, but more over him. And so much so that they were sledging me about his batting, which is tough. I don't know what I could have done except run him out, which I didn't do, but that's the sort of character we're dealing with. So, boys, I don't know how you add to that, but, please do.
Yeah, lovely. Funny enough, you have Cotsey dropping a catch with the reverse cut, because that's where probably my favourite Cotsey story comes from as well. Reiterate what you said. One of the great humans is our Cotsey. And thank you, Chris Beck, for the question. One of the great listeners. But yeah, mine involves Cotsey dropping what can only be described as a regular catch into his lip and mouth. Which I don't know if you played this game, Munter, but he's started bleeding. He's cut his lip open because he's dropped it on himself. And his sort of thought process to stem the bleeding was to pick up a handful of grass and sort of apply it as you like would maybe a tissue or like a bandage or something. So he's tried to, use like compression and grass as his sort of temporary bandage, which was quite something. In terms of the most interesting bloke I've played with, actually never opened the batting, so I can't comment on that. But we actually had a guy debut this summer who our player coach rung him at sort of 10 in the morning to tell him he was sort of going to debut in the ones. And then this player's proceeded to ring our coach at 10 p.m., 12 hours later, a couple of times. Carl was sort of tucked up in bed. He's a father of two, and he had one more on the way at this point. And his wife sort of said to him, "Hey, why don't you just answer that? That might get him off our page, and we can off our back, sorry, and we can go to sleep." So our coach at the time has answered the phone to be proceeded with, "Where are you, come Bush?" For those who don't know, the Bush Inn pub is now the student pub in Christchurch. So our first year uni student is blackout drunk, demanding our coach to come to the Bush Inn.
That's impressive.
And he's quite something. And he's basically said, "Come here, see you next Tuesday. Basically get here now." Our coach thought about it, but ultimately back to bed. And my favourite part about that story was I hit up said debutant at lunch and said, "Oh, good phone call with Carl last night," and the look of shock on his face, saying like he just no memory of it, just completely blacked out, no clue he'd done it. So yeah, that's probably one of the rarer blokes I've played with in a while.
That's brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to top any of these stories really. I won't rag on Cotsy anymore. I'll let him stay. I sort of was just leaving that question for Cotsy chat, but I was thinking in my head over a couple of guys I've opened with over time. Ash Simpson was always a good one to open with. Always like sort of fun yarns in the middle. I remember once I opened with him, and I think second ball he's gone down the wicket and just heaved one over Care. Sort of said to him, like, what was that about? And he's just looking at me going, "Yeah, I've seen enough." So he was always a very fun guy to open with. The other story that sort of popped to mind when you were talking about sort of things being hard to come to some people, and the thing about cricket is it can sometimes, especially when you're in bad form, it can make you look very silly.
Oh yeah.
And very similar to Cotsy, Little John of the Ryan variety once got about a one off about 23 against Albion. And I was just at the other end. Like, I was like, one of the few times by default I was looking all right because I could hit the thing. And, like, we're talking he's backing away and the ball, like, he's just trying to get out after about 15 or 6 of these. And he's playing and missing by a mile. He's backed away and it's just going over, like, leg stump. And he just can't hit the ball. And it's getting quite embarrassing. This sort of innings on Brooklyn 1. Anyway, he's been obviously lost his poles pretty quickly. Genuinely one off 23, and he's like not got near most of them. And I don't know who it was who came out to bat after him. It might have been Huntsy, and he's just hit me with, "Geez, John looked pretty good out there, didn't he?" We've absolutely lost it and had to go on to batting. So I mean, I've played with some pretty old cricketers who we'll probably get to in the future. Like Ducky's got about 1 million stories around Dunedin cricket, but those two, as I was quickly thinking, they really came to mind.
Outstanding, and it's actually a pretty good segue to our next question because we're talking about controlling nerves while betting, and none of that sounds like anyone was controlling any nerves out there. So this question is from Jimmy B at 69.420.
This rogue character.
He might be one of those. He might be one of those rarer people we're talking about actually.
Can we get him on?
Not sure how.
I might actually. We might get him on just so we can find out what 69 and 420 stand for because
He certainly doesn't
I've got no
sound
idea.
like a guy with any nerves.
Yeah.
So
Check your username, pal. Your nerves will go away.
So his question is any tips on how to control nerves while out at the crease getting off the mark. Cheers boys, love the show. Well, I could tell you to fake it till you make it and just be confident, but the reality is your nerves aren't going to go anywhere. We've all got them, and some people just deal with them a little better than others. Generally, we feel extra nervous when there's extra pressure on us to score runs, either by others or ourselves internally. It might be a big game. You might be under the pump. For me, it was always internal. I always put way too much pressure on myself. It was always worse if I hadn't trained a lot that week because I would feel like I was underdone or not prepared. I could never guarantee runs. No one ever can. But I just felt internally I'd done as much as I could if I trained well. By extra pressure, I mean the whole get off the mark thing is a great example, because if you only get one as opposed to a duck, do you actually feel any better? Because you don't really feel better. It's still failing. It's still, you haven't made runs. So you want to sort of getting off the mark, and you've got to get off the mark, because you're gonna move away from your batting plan. And if you don't have a batting plan, you should really have one to start your innings, which is generally based on your strengths and your weaknesses. For example, like if I'm batting, my strength is a cover drive or a cut shot, bread and butter. So I'm looking for those from ball one, and that's all I'm looking for. Obviously, as you get in, the shot's going to come out. It just keeps the game simple. If I was worried about getting off the mark, I would try and work balls that I couldn't work and then end up nicking out. And I didn't want to do that, obviously. The other thing to remember is a bowling team is never going to be more fizzed up than when a new batter gets the crease. So it doesn't matter if you're none off 15, they're not going to be that fizzed up forever. Eventually, they're going to cool off, and sometimes you just got to ride the wave, unlike England, obviously. If you end up 100 off 115, no one will remember how long it took you to get off the mark. Boys, you got much to add to that one?
No, I think really key thing there was sort of taking your result focus out of it. So, like, if you go out there and you make a duck, but you made the right decision for the scenario, like, you've actually done your job and it didn't pay off today, versus, shit, I'm now worried if I'm doing the right thing, versus trying to get off the mark, versus trying to get, like, I want my runs, I want to get off the mark, and then you're muddled, and then you're probably actually more likely to get out, and that's going to, like, spiral those nerves a bit. Take it more, as long as you're making the right decision with the bat in your hand in that scenario to help your team win the game, whatever that be, whether that is being none off 30 because you've got to dig in, or whether that's missing your first one because you've tried to hit it to the fence. Like, either way, you've actually done the right thing by your team, and then you're going to be in the best position to perform. And there's nothing better than taking something off yourself and putting it onto that team collective for what your team's trying to produce and results they're trying to get, and putting your best foot forward to help your team to sort of get out of your own head, project out of yourself a bit, and take those nerves away.
I think one of the biggest things you've acknowledged there, Munter, is just acknowledging nerves. Like, I don't think there's anyone that, feels as free as, no one feels as good 0 not out as they do 110 not out. It's a part of cricket that everyone goes out there, or 99% of us go out there, and those nerves are just there as you start your innings. So I think the biggest thing is just acknowledging it, that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a few nerves floating around. Probably just shows you care a bit and you want to do your bit for the team. If it's like a real, punishing nerves where you feel like you can't play a shot or anything, that's when probably you need to get a wee process going of whether it's just sort of a deep breath thing, or are you getting really nervous before you bat as well, in which you need to probably have, work on things that can hold you focused a bit, like listening to a bit of music while still obviously focusing on the game. If it's just general nerves, though, I think that comes with batting, then I think, the big key there is just acknowledging it. Like, I think the theme that throughout this sort of podcast, and we're getting a lot of questions, are all very similar. It's a lot of like, how do I get out of a bad run, or how do I control my nerves, or all this stuff around batting, and that is all very similar problems we sort of all go through. And then so it's just a matter of, obviously, as we said, but like what works for you is always going to be best. But I think sort of just acknowledging that nerves are there, everyone gets them a bit. Just go out there and be positive, and have maybe your shots, as you say, off the mark really that means that much to you, more than getting, what does it matter if you get 2 or 3 or a duck? It's all sort of similar, but just having those shots that you feel comfortable playing with early, get a bit of time in the middle, and then sort of just, I guess we all just settle into the game from there.
Yeah, one thing to extend from Croms, and this is probably getting a little bit technical, but your body has the same physiological response of nerves and that excitement has. So your body your brain tells you, oh, I'm nervous or oh, I'm excited, but your body reacts in the exact same way. So if you are really struggling to get over your nerves, that's a trick you can use to sort of trick your brain out of the nerves, because your body's reacting the same as it would to excitement. So if you can think like, oh, I'm excited to bet this week. Fuck, I can't wait to get out there. I'm fizzed up. Your body's actually going to react the exact same way. It's just your brain telling you a different thing. So that's, if you want to get very technical on the mental side of the game, you can sort of play around with that as well.
No, I like that. Well summed up. That's a good point there, Jacko. I love it.
Jacko just really offering us with some brains there.
Yeah, get excited. It's always good to add it. I like it. We've got all sorts of dynamics here, and and obviously I liked how he talked about the team dynamic, and obviously Shea Hope wasn't listening to that one. But
imagine going at a guy who gets 50.
I've heard of someone, and I won't name names, but at a particular, it was an A game. And the guy got 100, and he got a spray about not going harder earlier. I think that might have been his last season playing age cricket, which is probably not a coincidence.
Well, I think we're going to touch on it in future pods, but in one of the great cricket cliches, like, he was in. And when you're in, you've got to go on, You've got to do the job.
You got to start again once you get on 100.
That's it.
Brilliant. Right, okay, so we've got one more question this week. So, hello, Matt. I've been following you for a while now. I'm a leg spinner and a middle order batter. I'm wondering about spin. How quick should a 14-year-old be who hopes to play a decent standard of men's cricket next year? And it's from Elliot. So this here is a very interesting question, and I think it's pretty relevant in today's world, because a lot of people talk about guys like Matt Parkinson and they bowl too slow for international cricket. People throw it around, but what does it actually mean? So for me, so I can't tell you the exact speed you need to bowl at this level, but I can tell you what it looks like when it is too slow. So as a batsman, when it's too slow, it's really easy to get down the pitch, to get it on the full or to get it a half volley, basically smother that spin. And more importantly, you've also got that time to get back on the crease and react off the pitch. If it spins sharply and it's too quick, a batsman can't sort of react. If they get full, they can't sort of, I guess, cover themselves. So if a batsman can do that, then you're always going to be struggling. And it's a fine line, because if you're bowling too quick, then you're not actually a spinner. You might as well be a seamer. If you're not actually ripping the ball, then there's no point. So like the answer for me in simple terms is, however quick you can bowl good leg spin, and I'm talking, when I say good, I mean good turn, good drift, good bounce, and good dip, as quickly as possible without compromising your leg spin. Like you're young, you're 14, and physically, you've got a lot. You've got a wee way to go. So it's not easy to just send down leg spin at a decent clip. So you can work on your run up and get a bit of momentum through the crease, but don't shortcut it. Don't start sprinting. Don't bowl real quick for the sake of bowling real quick. If you worry about that too much about pace at your age, you're going to lose the ability to turn. And as you get older, you'll physically be able to send it down without compromising your leg spin. So that's sort of, I don't know if I answered the question or not, but
yeah, I suppose mine will also stem from that. I think that age, being a leg spinner, your biggest focus is going to be on technique and the technique of your variations. So your biggest trait as a leggy is the miracle ball. So is being able to rip it big, or bowling that googly that the batsman doesn't pick. So that's actually what your bread and butter is. Being a leg spinner, you're probably not going to consistently land it until you're in your 20s, and maybe even later in your teens, and that's just the nature of leg spin. Like, it is probably the hardest discipline. Pace, as Matt said, you're going to have to be quick enough that you're going to, I guess, batsmen can't just wait for you all day and play you how they like, but you don't want to be taking away from your main skill sets, which are ripping the ball big and your variations. Leg spinners naturally probably are the slowest of the bowlers, but that's because they're giving it that big rip. So, focus on turning the ball big, because no matter what grade of cricket you're playing, if you're a leggy that rips it big, has a good googly, has a slider or a flipper, you'll be a problem, regardless of what pace you're bowling, I think.
Yeah, I think as you sort of touched on there, the biggest thing is that you are bowling leg spin. So that's, keep that up. And if you can even get to a point where you're landing the majority of your balls and giving a good rip, and you're going to get picked in a lot of teams and take a lot of wickets. So I'd say just keep up the journey of bowling leg spin for starters. I think Matt said it. We can't give you a Ks per hour amount of how quick you should be bowling. It's sort of, it's getting, I suppose you're at that age where it's starting to change a bit. So you don't want to be still bowling that loopy stuff that I guess you see, in the younger kids, is the bowling spin that's still sort of just looping up and turning, and you're probably into that standard now where you've got to bowl a wee bit quicker than what maybe you have the last few years. But again, I think as Jacko said, like, ripping the ball should still be the first priority, and then sort of the bounce and the speed and that sort of stuff is what's going to come next. The speed, yeah, as you get stronger and as you get older, that will just naturally come, and then everything sort of comes together, and then the pitch as well, that will sort of change a few things. Like sometimes you get a pitch or get the opportunity to bowl with the new ball, and the bounce can be as important as anything. But when it all does come together, there's nothing harder to face than a spinner who's turning it sharply at speed. So speed will become important, especially over the next few years. So always something to work on, but I think still at this age, like, giving it a good rip is your first priority.
Yeah, 100%. And especially in men's cricket, I think, like, speed, as you just really said there, Crom, speed can be pitch dependent, conditions dependent, even scenario dependent. So, yeah, I think if you focus on your technique, that's what's going to make you a good bowler. And then, as Matt said, as you get bigger and as you get stronger, you want that technique to hold up, and then the effort to bowl the right speed goes away. So, yeah, that technique is what's going to serve you into being a cricketer that's a really good leg spinner until they're 35, 40, instead of, trying to bowl a set speed and flaming out, because, yeah, it is a really hard discipline to master.
I think sort of one other thing is going to be the type of leg spinner you want to be. Hopefully you want to be in the Shane Warne sort of regard as an absolute legend, but you've got the other option of being the Shahid Afridi, bowling 125k and making some good money on T20 cricket. So maybe that's a more appealing option than we realise these days. But hopefully you're still wanting to be a Warney type and bowl miracle balls and lead team to victories and things like that.
Yeah, nice, boys. I like that. The only thing I would add is just play around with it in the nets. Like, just see how fast you can bowl your leg spin with, like, while still turning it. Just play around with it. You're gonna know, like, there's gonna be a speed that's too much, where you're not actually bowling you're not finishing your action. Get someone to help you. Just trial it, and then just figure that out, and then go from there. And as I said, the older you get, the easier it will come.
Probably the only last thing is you don't want to just get into a pattern of trying to bowl too quick because you think you've got to bowl quicker. And, like, you're still young, so your body's growing. You don't want to be putting lots of, like, forces over stress on your body and break down and get hurt. So, yeah, you want to be, trying to find that pace, but, yeah, you don't want to, I guess, spend a month trying to bowl rapid and then you've thrown your shoulder out and your season's gone, sort of thing. So, yeah, play around with it, but, again, technique, nail that, and you'll be fine in the long run.
Nice. Righto, we'll sign off with that one. So that is us for another week, team. Thanks to Lugsy and Jaxo, as always. And, of course, thank you to our award-winning listeners for continuing to listen to us and support us. While you're still here, chuck us a like, a subscribe, a rate and review. It helps the cause. And if you really want to go on the extra mile, patreon.com/maximum cricket to help. But in the meantime, Lugsy, Jacko, have yourselves a great week, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.